Quitting your job might feel like freedom, but if you do it for the wrong reasons, it can become the biggest regret of your life. Before you hand in that resignation letter, there is something that you really need to think about, because most people get this part wrong and it costs them everything. They leave one job only to recreate the exact same problems somewhere else. Burnout, resentment, boredom, feeling stuck. So before you quit, let's press pause and talk about the truth behind what you're feeling and what you need to do first. If you're here, you're probably feeling done. Done with the meetings, the micromanaging, the Sunday night dread. You have probably fantasized about marching into your boss's office, handing in your resignation, and never looking back. I get it. I have been there. Back when I was still practicing medicine, I used to drive home in silence, completely drained. No music, no podcasts, just silence, because I had nothing left in the tank. And I would think, is this it? Is this what I went through all that training for? But here's the thing. Quitting felt like the solution, when in reality, it was just a symptom. We often believe quitting will fix everything. But what we really want is relief from burnout, from feeling unfulfilled, from the endless to-do list that never feels meaningful. According to a recent Gallup poll, over 70% of employees are either disengaged or actively looking for something else. But here's what I've seen again and again. A lot of people leave one job only to find themselves just as overwhelmed or unfulfilled in the next job. Why? Because they didn't get clear on what was really broken. So let's talk about what you need to unpack before you quit. There are 3 big clarity checks, and if you skip them, you risk making the wrong kind of leap. This is the section that could save you months, if not years, of unnecessary frustration. Number 1, is it the job or is it your boundaries? Sometimes we don't need a new job. We need a new way of being in the job we already have. Because here's the hard truth. You can change your environment, but if you bring the same habits with you, you will just rebuild the same pressure cooker somewhere else. When I was working in medicine, I thought I hated the system, but it wasn't just the system. It was the version of me that was showing up inside it. I was overextending myself constantly. I had a lot of trouble saying no to things that didn't work for me. I really struggled to stand up for myself. Over time, I built up a lot of resentment because I was pouring from an empty cup and expecting the system to fill it back up. Spoiler, it never did. Boundaries aren't selfish, they are self-respect in action. So ask yourself, which parts of my job actually energize me, even a little, and what drains me? And is it because I'm overcommitting or overfunctioning? Am I expecting my workplace to validate me because I am not doing that for myself? Even small shifts like blocking off 30 minutes at lunch to walk outside or setting an off hours rule for your inbox, these things can really start to reclaim your sense of agency. So here's something to try this week. Say one more no than you usually would. Decline that extra task. Let that non-urgent request wait. Notice what happens to your energy, to your self-concept, and yes, to your guilt, because learning to tolerate the discomfort of setting boundaries is a skill that will follow you wherever you go. Number 2, are you running toward something or just away? This is the soul-searching question that most people avoid, but it's everything. Are you quitting because you have seen a clear vision of what's next? Or because you're trying to escape something that you haven't been willing to face? Look, escaping isn't always bad. Sometimes a job is truly toxic. Sometimes your nervous system is screaming for relief. And sometimes walking away is the bravest and healthiest thing that you can do. But if the only clarity you have is, I can't do this anymore, that's not enough. Because when you leave with 0 plan, 0 direction, and 0 inner compass, you don't find freedom, you find a void. I have seen it over and over. Smart, driven people quit in a haze of burnout only to wake up 2 months later with a blank calendar, an identity crisis, and no idea what comes next. So here's a journaling prompt that can cut through that fog. If I had a 6-month paid sabbatical, no consequences, no pressure, would I want to come back to this job? If the answer is yes, even a little, it might be that you are simply depleted and need recovery. If the answer is a hard no, there is something deeper going on, and that is your invitation to start dreaming bigger. Research backs this up. Studies have found that people who take the time to explore their values and test new interests and clarify what they want before quitting tend to be significantly more satisfied in their new career path. Those who quit impulsively, they are more likely to experience regret because without clarity, it's easy to trade one kind of frustration for another. So, what are you running toward? A new industry, a dream project you've buried for years, a lifestyle that actually lets you live? Even if you don't have the full picture, sketch out something. Start a vision board, draft your ideal day, and make it real enough to pull you forward instead of just trying to push your current job away. Number 3, what is your inner blueprint telling you? This one is deep, and it's where the real transformation begins. Most people think that they are stuck in a job, but what they're really stuck in is a story about who they are supposed to be, about what success should look like, about what is expected of them, what's responsible, what's impressive, or what's enough. When I was practicing medicine, my title was more than a job. It was my identity, my social currency, my entire self-concept. So the idea of leaving wasn't just about changing careers. It felt like erasing who I was. And for a while, I resisted it. I stayed stuck, not because I didn't have options, but because I didn't have permission from myself to become someone new. And that's what the inner blueprint is all about. It's the subconscious architecture that defines who you believe you are and what you believe you're allowed to do. If your blueprint says, I'm the practical one, or I'm the high achiever, or I'm the one who never fails, then any movement that feels uncertain or creative or experimental will feel unsafe, even if it's right. So how do you change that? You start by seeing it. Try this exercise. Write down your current job identity, not your title, but who you are in this role. What traits define you? Then write a paragraph as your future self, someone who is thriving in a life that lights them up, and compare the two. That space between those two identities, that is where the real change needs to happen. Not in your resignation letter, but in your self-perception. And here's the best part. You don't need to wait for a new job to start shifting your identity. You can start now by acting in small ways like the person that you want to become. Set better boundaries. Say yes to the creative project. Speak up more. Rest without guilt. Identity isn't static. It's a choice that you remake every day. Okay, so now that we have covered the 3 big clarity checks that you need to make before quitting, let's talk about what comes next and what to do instead of just quitting on the spot. Let's say that you have gone through the clarity checks. You have asked yourself the hard questions and you're starting to see your patterns, your desires, and your blueprint. And the answer still feels like, I need to go. Okay, so now let's talk about how to leave without blowing up your life, your finances, or your nervous system. Because quitting well is its own kind of superpower. It takes thought and strategy and emotional maturity, and it sets the tone for everything that comes next. So here are 3 smarter, saner alternatives to just walking out and hoping for the best. 1, do a mini quit first before you hand in that resignation letter. So try this. Do a test run. Take a sabbatical, go part-time, or use your vacation. Even just booking 10 days off and disconnecting completely can give you a surprising amount of insight. When I was thinking about leaving medicine, I didn't go from full-time to full freedom overnight. I started by shifting to 4 days a week. I used that one free day, not to do errands or clean my house, but to experiment with the future. I took online courses, I journaled, I started mapping out what a different life could look like. And you know what? That one day gave me more clarity than months of overthinking ever had. It showed me 2 things: that I did have energy and creativity left in me, it was just being drained by the wrong container, and that there was another version of me quietly waiting for permission to come alive. Sometimes we're not burned out, we're just misaligned, and giving yourself space is the fastest way to figure out which one it is. So before you leap, create a pocket of air. Even if you can't take a sabbatical, can you take a long weekend off and protect it like a sacred container? No emails, no to-dos, just space to listen to yourself again. Number 2, build the bridge while you're still standing. One of the biggest myths out there is that you have to be all in to start something new, that if you don't quit everything and take the leap, then you're not serious. Total nonsense. You can build your future in the margins of your present. You can plant seeds while you still have a steady income and a working laptop. In fact, that's what most successful transitions look like. They're not a leap, they're a bridge. According to research from the Kauffman Foundation, the average age of entrepreneurs when they start their companies is around 40, making midlife one of the most common and successful times to launch something new. And do you know what most of them have in common? They didn't quit their job on day one. They started with a side project, a Saturday workshop, a newsletter, a client here or there. The truth is, momentum doesn't need to come from big, dramatic moves. It can come from consistent action taken in alignment with your future identity. So ask yourself, can I block off 5 hours a week to work on my dream? Can I say no to something non-essential and yes to exploring a new skill or interest? Can I take one online course, launch a tiny offer, pitch myself once a week? You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start building. So here's a simple 3-part formula to get you going. 1, start with service. What do you love helping people with? 2, add a skill. What are you naturally good at or willing to learn? And 3, find a small way to offer it. A post, a workshop, a conversation. Your future isn't waiting for the perfect moment. It's waiting for movement. Okay, let's move on to the third big way to quit well, and that is to redesign your life, not just your work. Here's a curveball. What if your job isn't the only thing that needs to change? What if it's your lifestyle, your self-care habits, your relationship to time, your boundaries, your nervous system? Sometimes we focus so hard on the job as the source of all our unhappiness, that we forget. You bring yourself into every role that you play. If your sleep is a mess, your relationships are disconnected, your phone is the first and last thing that you touch each day, and your brain is constantly in reactive mode, quitting your job won't magically reset that. One of the best things that I ever did before I left medicine was reworking my life before reworking my career. I started going for a walk every afternoon. No phone, no podcast, just 15 minutes of breathing and movement. I did a weekly Sunday reset, groceries, laundry, a little journaling, and planning the week. I adjusted my evening routine to wind down at 9 p.m., not 11. Small things, but they built stability, the kind of internal steadiness that I would need to handle the discomfort of leaving behind a well-worn identity. So ask yourself, am I giving myself the structure to thrive, or am I barely surviving my days? Am I treating myself like a high-performance machine or like a broken appliance held together with duct tape and caffeine? Here's a fun and slightly confronting exercise. Design your ideal workday and life rhythm without changing your job. What time would you wake up? What would you do first? When would you take breakfast? What would you eat? How would you wind down? Try to live that schedule for 1 week within the confines of your current role. It will teach you a lot about what's possible, what's broken, and what's habit versus circumstance. Remember, changing jobs won't fix burnout if the person running your life, you, is still operating from depletion and self-neglect and hustle. Redesign the container, not just the contents. Okay, so the bottom line after those 3 elements of quitting well is this. Quitting your job can be a powerful, life-affirming decision, but if you haven't done the real work first, meaning clarity, identity, habits, and structure, you risk jumping into something new and dragging all the old patterns with you. And if you're in that foggy, uncertain space right now, trying to figure out what is next and what's possible and how you might even begin to earn a living outside of your current job, then I made something for you. It's called 50 Ways to Build Multiple Streams of Revenue, and it's totally free. Inside, you'll find practical and inspiring ways to start generating income on your own terms, even if you have no clear plan yet. You can grab it below. It's the perfect next step if you are thinking about quitting, but you want to do it smart. Here's the truth. I am not here to tell you to stay in a job that is crushing your soul. I'm here to say, don't rush the escape, because the way you leave, it matters. If you leave in a fog of burnout and blame and confusion, you'll bring that fog with you into the next chapter. But if you leave with clarity, if you're aligned with your values and your identity and your energy, then your next move won't just be an escape. It'll be a bold step toward the life that you are meant to build. Quitting can be an incredible decision, but only if it comes from clarity, not chaos. You deserve more than just a different paycheck. You deserve a life that feels like you. Now, if you're ready to reinvent your life in a deeper way, go watch my video called The Ultimate Guide to Reinventing Your Life, which I am going to link on the very next screen. In it, I walk you through exactly how I rebuilt my life from the ground up, not just the external shifts, but the internal rewiring that made all the difference. I'll see you there. Oh, wait. Where did I leave my tea? Hang on, I gotta go get that first. Okay, very important.